Summoners, and welcome back to another Wild Rift video. My name is Avalon, and today we're going over the 6 best late game champions. These champions will be in no particular order, but they're all massively powerful in the late game, and if you can get them to their item spikes, then they're sure to carry the game. If you like carrying in the late game, then these are the champs for you. So let's get right into it. The first late game powerhouse we have for y'all today is half of the new Vestayan duo to hit the Wild Rift, Xayah. She's still extremely new at the moment, and players are relatively inexperienced with her. However, she's already proven to be a late game monster, and will often dominate team fights where she's allowed to attack. Xayah's primary strength in the late game is her incredible damage output, and the fact that her auto attacks are AoE. Xayah's W, Deadly Plumage, gives her a generous amount of attack speed while also increasing the amount of damage they do. In combination with her passive, Clean Cuts, her auto attacks come out fast, hard, and hit everybody who dares step up to her. Once you've built up some crit and AD, Blade Caller also does great damage, and when you're throwing out lots of feathers really quickly, it's quite easy to apply the root and do big damage with Blade Caller. Xayah's ultimate, Featherstorm, is an excellent defensive tool and one of the most useful late game ultimates in the game. Being able to slip away from danger and dodge critical abilities can be game-changing, and the feathers laid down afterwards is the cherry on top. Featherstorm can save you from assassins and mages alike, dodging their burst and making the counterattack difficult, since you can just pull through the feathers that your ult lays down for massive damage and CC. Featherstorm also allows Xayah the freedom to play super aggressively, as she can trade auto attacks with carries and then ult the incoming damage from their teammates. Xayah's major weakness is playing against champions that outrange her. However, on the Wild Rift, long-range marksmen aren't particularly popular. Jhin is the only one that really makes her day particularly hard, and for the most part, assassins rule the mid lane. ORIANNA is the only long-range mage that can make it hard for Xayah to teamfight, but if the enemy mid is an assassin, Xayah will have an excellent time later on. As Xayah becomes a more understood pick on the Wild Rift, her strengths will be known better and her immense power as a late-game hyper carry will be utilized more often. If you pick her up, try to farm as much as you can to get to your potent 3-item spike and begin shredding teams. Next up on our list of best late-game champions is ORIANNA, the Lady of Clockwork. ORIANNA is absolutely busted right now, and if you aren't already abusing her for some quick wins, you should get on it. Her laning phase is quite powerful once mastered, and her team fighting is quite incredible. ORIANNA has everything you want out of a mid laner in the late game. She has low but impactful cooldowns, big shields for your allies, a game-changing ultimate, slows and speed buffs, and powerful zone control. ORIANNA's Command Attack into Command Dissonance combo is quite low cooldown in the late game and deals very high damage. As the enemy team, you have to be very respectful of the ball, or else you'll be chunked quite hard. ORIANNA's Command Protect isn't the best shield in the game, but it gives quite a sizable amount of effective health, and you could also use Command Dissonance on top of them for a short burst of movement speed. This gives ORIANNA the flexibility to simply power up her teammates instead of relying on herself to be the carry. She can function as an enabler for champions like CAMILLE or Shyvana, or she can be the carry for the team. ORIANNA's ultimate, Command Shockwave, is an incredible playmaking spell that is iconic for the champ. A well-placed Shockwave can wipe out an entire team if ORIANNA has enough AP, or simply set them up to be knocked down by the rest of her team. Other champions on her team can deliver the ball, making it easy for her to get off crazy Shockwaves. The enemy team also has to fear wherever the ball is placed, because if they walk over it, they may all end up dead. ORIANNA's damage output in the late game is terrifying, and the utility she provides her team is virtually unmatched. She's excellent at winning fights by simply hitting their front line and peeling her carries, and she can also play extremely aggressively with her divers to set up wombo combos. She is a very versatile champion, and in the late game, she's the only mid laner you'd ever want on your team. Before we continue, make sure to join our Wild Rift Discord in the description below and subscribe to keep up with all updates relating to Wild Rift. The third champion we have on our best late game champions list is another marksman, Kai'Sa. While she doesn't match the situational raw damage output of Xayah's AoE feathers, Kai'Sa makes up for it with tools to deal with any situation and incredible single-target DPS. Kai'Sa's Acathian Rain does terrifying damage to people in the late game, and combined with the attack speed from her supercharge proccing her passive constantly, she melts through tanks and squishies alike. Anyone who faces a late game Kai'Sa will die in a flurry of autos unless they can somehow escape. If they do manage to escape, that's where Kai'Sa's utility comes into play. Killer Instinct allows her to chase down kills and dive extremely aggressively into enemy carries. Kai'Sa can be played to hit their front line, however, she also has the option of following her divers and assassinating carries with them. Killer Instinct is incredibly versatile, and it can also be used to outplay incoming threats and shield their damage. Kai'Sa's third ability, Supercharge, is great for outplaying enemies who come into range and for increasing your DPS. Once evolved, the invisibility it provides can stop enemy assassins in their tracks, and often once their combo is dodged, they don't provide much else. You can also use Supercharge to aggressively move forward and attack enemy carries once you come out of stealth. This will often surprise them, and you can use the brief moment to melt through the health bar. Void Seeker is also great utility for a marksman to have. It can be used to check bushes and scout objectives from a huge range, and it's also decent poke if it lands on the enemy team. It also limits how far the enemy team can come out of their base, since if Kai'Sa lands a Void Seeker on an isolated enemy champion, she can dive in with Killer Instinct and send them to the grave. Kai'Sa's single target damage output is crazy in the late game, and the tools she has at her disposal to navigate any potential danger make her one of the best late game champions on the Wild Rift. Xayah typically outperforms Kai'Sa if the enemy team is purely divers. However, if the situation requires a little bit more flexibility, Kai'Sa will shine. Before we get into the rest of the video, our question of the day is, what champion do you hate playing against in the late game? Apart from the champions on this list, Vayne usually gets slammed in lane, but if she can make it to her item spikes, she's so hard to lock down. Make sure to leave your answer in the comments below. Next up, we have Camille, the Steel Shadow. Camille is renowned for her potent scaling, and once she reaches the late game, her precision protocol hits like a truck. She's a deadly split pusher and can show up to teamfights and absolutely annihilate carries in an instant. Camille's primary power in the late game comes from her first ability, Precision Protocol. First off, it's 2 auto attack resets, which gives her a lot of burst damage. Secondly, it's far more powerful as you get items, as the ratios are quite nice. Last but not least, her second Q converts a portion of the attack into true damage, which turns a brutal Triforce proc into an incredibly devastating nuke. Camille's typical item build features a mix of damage and tank stats. However, she truly begins to spike after she finishes her first few bruiser items. Camille also has one of the most potent engage combos in the game. Hookshot into Hextech Ultimatum allows her to cover a large amount of distance and prevent the enemy carry from leaving, which can be incredibly obnoxious for all champions that aren't named Fizz or Xayah. If the enemy has a fed carry, you can throw your body at them and keep them locked in the Hextech Ultimatum for your team to mow down. Or if you're fed, you can use the time they're locked in to simply erase them from the rift. Hookshot also gives you a hefty amount of attack speed when you engage, so in combination with your precision protocols, they won't last long. Camille's split pushing ability is also quite strong, as repeated Triforce procs from Precision Protocol melts through towers very quickly. She can duel anybody who comes to match her in the late game, and her tower diving capabilities are to be feared. Hookshot also allows Camille to play overly aggressive, as she can use it to escape when the enemy team rotates. Camille's damage in the late game is insane, and she's quite hard to lock down and eliminate. She's great at split pushing and taking down towers and the enemy Baron laner, however, she's also a solid team fighter. She's versatile in playstyle when she spikes. It's just often she won't get to a point where she's relevant before the enemy team has already won the game. So far we've only been over big carry champions, so this one is for all of you support players out there. Lulu is bonkers right now, and if you do manage to get to the late game with her, victory is extremely easy. Her ability to empower her allies to do mind-blowing things in teamfights is unmatched, and her utility is insanely impactful in every fight. Lulu's W, Whimsy, is one of the greatest buffs in the game for marksmen. When you're playing a marksman with Lulu, you are given a powerful movement speed buff and attack speed buff, which synergizes very well with itself. You have the movement speed to dodge enemy skills and avoid damage, however you can also use it to move forwards into range for your attacks. This allows you to use the increased attack speed and deliver auto attacks while staying in range to keep dishing them out. While you're running around at light speed sending out auto attacks, Lulu can cast her Help Picks on you, which not only gives you a fat shield, but also gives you Picks, who adds their bolts on top of your attacks, which are coming out quite fast. Your auto attacks are now empowered, and they come out fast, and you can keep throwing them out, and you have a big shield. If this already wasn't enough, Lulu's ultimate, Wild Growth, knocks up any enemies near her ally and grants her ally a slow field and a bunch of health for the duration. It's virtually impossible to die as a marksman when you have a Lulu on your team. Lulu isn't simply an enchanter who can buff her lane partner. Her abilities are also very impactful when used on her frontliners and bruisers. If they're ahead, they can often become so oppressive that the enemy team simply can't deal with them. Lulu has some of the best utility in the game, and it's incredibly powerful in the late game. She has the flexibility to play back with her carries or enchant her frontliners to the teamfight victory. In the support role, her late game potential is simply unmatched. Last on the list, we have a jungler for you all. Shyvana, the half-dragon, while possessing powerful dueling in the early game, becomes a team-fighting beast in the later game once she gets her items. Shyvana is one of the most gold-reliant champions in the game, and if she's behind, she will feel like she does no damage and gets obliterated. However, when she's even or ahead, she comes into the late game with a vengeance and can destroy teamfights all on her own. Shyvana's scaling comes from two main areas, her Flame Breath and her Twin Bite, which combine together to create devastating damage output. Shyvana's Flame Breath deals respectable damage on its own, but the powerful part is the mark that it leaves on them. Shyvana's Twin Bite allows her to keep proccing the on-hit mark for immense damage, and she can melt through tanks and squishies alike. Shyvana's teamfighting in the late game is very powerful, and her ability to gap close and destroy carries is quite insane. If you want to take games into your own hands as a jungler, Shyvana is the pick. So even though they scale like crazy, none of these champions are instant wins once you reach the late game and still require strong execution to secure the victory. However, they all have the power to solo carry games, and if you're looking to be a teamfight defining player, then you should try out some of the champions we went over today. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, and answer our question of the day in the comments below. Good luck on the Wild Rift, and I'll see you next time.